partner Jerry and I will be negating the resolution resolved that the U.S. federal government should substantially increase space exploration. In order for the affirmative side to win this debate, they must prove why there is a need for change in space policy, how exactly their plan increases space exploration, and what issues are they attempting to solve. They must also prove how their final goal will provide practical and desirable benefits to the international society. To begin, the negative would like to define the following terms, all derived from the Oxford American Dictionary. Substantial is defined as of considerable increase in size or worth. Increase is defined as to make of greater size, and space exploration is defined as the act of traveling beyond Earth's exosphere in order to examine it. Contention 1. The negative believes that any increase towards space exploration, whether it be through funding or through other ventures, would be put to better use in another more prominent and vitally important field. NASA, as you may know, received roughly $18.8 billion from the federal government last year to fund its research and development. Compare that to the NCI, or the National Cancer Institute, the budget from 2010, which was only estimated at about $5.1 billion from Cancer.gov. NASA received more than 3 times the amount of funding the Cancer Institute received. Now, take into account that the NCI is only a small part of the National Institute of Health, which is a government program created to solve health problems in our society. The entire funding for the entire NIH in 2007 was only $28.5 billion total from NIH.gov. NASA's space program itself constitutes over 65% of the amount of money given to the NIH to fund its variety of stem cell health branches to cover our government. Furthermore, the government only allocates about $1.3 billion to stem cell research for their efforts to help mankind, from stemcell.gov. Stem cell research has already proven itself more beneficial to the immediate needs of humans by growing organs such as the synthetic trachea that was given to a man from New York Times. This shows that NASA does not need any more funding to further its research. In fact, it proves that greater discoveries can be made with less money than NASA uses. Contention 2. NASA has proven itself fairly unable to produce both positive returns and capable management of its numerous space programs. While NASA has demonstrated its ability on few occasions with the Apollo moon landing as the highlight of its aptitude, it has time and time again proven itself unable to effectively make use of its projects. One example of NASA's incompetence is DART, a robotic satellite that was supposed to dock and rendezvous on NASA's other existing satellites in space. However, instead of docking upon the intended satellite, DART flew into the satellite, which knocked DART back into the Earth's gravitational force, which then in turn pulled DART into the depths of the Pacific, NASA.gov. Several other failures, including the Genesis gravitational force, including the Genesis spacecraft and the space-based inferred system. The Genesis was designed to collect solar winds and panels made out of gold, diamond, and sapphire, but ended up slamming into the desert in Utah, causing the government to lose the panels made out of these precious stones. The space-based inferred system was a satellite tracking system designed to be used by the U.S. Navy, costing over $10 billion. Needless to say, after a grand total time of 7 minutes up in space, the entire system crashed, leaving a $10 billion box to float in space, all from NASA.gov. And finally, one of NASA's greatest failures of all time, the Space Shuttle program. This $209 billion program, whose final purpose was to send supplies to a football field-sized space station. This program honestly did not solve any questions resolved in space, and was, in general, a waste of valuable funds. Contention 3. And finally, in addressing any possible affirmative plan, any proposed plan to increase space exploration must be set within the guidelines of the 1967 Space Treaty, ratified by all the spacefaring nations. To begin, any increase in space must be used or operated by all nations, whether it be European, Asian, or African, to fulfill the 1967 Space Treaty. Quote, "And the exploration and use of outer space according to the moon and other celestial bodies with the other state parties of the treaty, Article 9 of the Space Treaty. The affirmative plan cannot also focus solely upon improving American condition. This plan also forbids any form of space bases upon celestial bodies. Quote, the establishment of bases, installations, and fortifications on celestial bodies shall be forbidden, Article 4. In addition, the treaty states, quote, states shall be responsible for monitoring national space activities, whether it be carried out by government or non-government entities, Article 6. This through this space agreement, the government must control and supervise any space activities performed by any private space agencies within or under the law of the American government. The affirmative, which means that any private space agencies will then be turned into a government space agency. The affirmative plan must be within the restrictions set by the Space Treaty and must not violate any of the international laws. Now I'd like to refute Sean's contention involving asteroids. The negative debaters will argue that these projects are too expensive. Any asteroid mining could cost around the range of tens of billions of dollars. It would take years to develop this technology to prevent an asteroid from crashing into the asteroid or actually building a rover to land on this asteroid. And the affirmative would be increasing production and research. They wouldn't be increasing space exploration currently. The negative will argue that the fact that we might find something useful is too weak of a reason to spend this amount of money. The negative will also argue that there's better dollar for dollar return for our money elsewhere. All these reasons more, I urge a negative.